Hello everyone, welcome to Mentally Sound. A huge thank you to everyone that's listening to the show. Your support is greatly appreciated. And a huge thank you to Gareth and the team behind the scenes giving me the opportunity to act out this blog post for the listeners. In relation to context about what this is about, I wrote a blog post about a month ago that I was really honoured that Sane Charity on Twitter promoted it over a long weekend. It's on my website, Geek Apocalypse, where basically I talked about my situation that I went through with my bipolar disorder over the last year, where it basically destroyed my life. There's no really other way of saying it. To the point of where I ended up in a psychiatric ward towards the end of last year for a couple of months and nearly lost my life due to the medication I was taking that ended up being detrimental, and also wanting to give up by ending my life. And I know I don't say that flippantly or with a bravado sense, but literally that's what it was like. Because I think back to it now, and I guess the more brutal and honest thing I can say is that wanting to end my life still now seems a better option than the pain and experience I was feeling during it. And I even think that now, even in a position where I feel better and well, I hope that really does reinforce how terrifyingly painful and unbearable mental health can get, and it's not an individual's fault that it ended up that way. And that's really why I wanted to share it, because you may be thinking as I say that, then why go through the trouble of making it, you know, of bringing back some memories that you don't want to talk about? Is because I'm not prepared to put it in a box like people who decide to not care about you anymore and say that, you know, it's your fault that you're feeling bad about your illness and you're not coping, because that's the ignorant, delusional attitude that worries me about the way we deal with mental health, because I'm not prepared to put my mental health in a box and pretend it doesn't happen. You know, I'm not going to treat it like an old coat where it's in the house somewhere like a memory, but it's inside a box where I'll get it out every so often to remind me of a different period of my life. It is, I don't disrespect it in that way. It is a part of my life and always will be, but it doesn't define me. And I'm defined by it, and I'm not the only one, by being sort of abandoned by 95% of the people that knew me before I got there in the hospital, because I'm apparently not trying hard enough. I'm not coping as well as they can with their mental health issues, and it's all my fault that it happened, and I should have done more before I got there, and I'm irrational and irresponsible, and I'm hurtful because I'm shouting, and I'm saying that I get annoyed by the fact that they say that that I need to try hard, when it is the attitude that people have thinking that they're helping that is the problem. And not just the way that I wasn't getting the help I needed, but what I'm saying is the expectation that there's a quick fix to mental health as extreme as what you're about to hear. Because there isn't. There isn't in the majority of cases with mental health. It isn't a quick fix. And the realization that it is literally trial and error whenever you get treated for mental health. That's literally what it is. It is finding the thing that works for you. It isn't a case of comparing it and saying, do what I did, that will work, because that's not how it works. It would be great if that was what it was like, but it's the only type of situation where it's not like sort of you're struggling to sleep and majority of people take sleeping pills and they work. It isn't that. That's not how it works. It is far more complex and difficult to deal with, and it deserves that respect. But I think this is the issue. This is the issue: is that because mental health is talked about now in society, even reluctantly, is that there's a half information out there about depression and mental health and bipolar disorder, whatever, schizophrenia, whatever mental health you want to talk about, to the point of now that a person who is only half looked into it thinks they know what mental health is. Like, they'll think being in bed for a couple of days, upset over the fact that they've broken up with their boyfriend, is regarded as a major mental health problem, when that is a natural reaction in most cases of being upset with a life situation. You know, just the same as grieving over someone that died. That is how a human being responds to that situation, and that is a natural feeling. It is not natural to wake up and want to end their life every single day, regardless of how their day goes, which is how I feel most of the time. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that I'm not worth knowing. It doesn't mean that I'm worth forgetting about, or forgetting about what a great human being I am when it doesn't overwhelm me. Because I've had 2 major breakdowns in my life when I was at university and the most recent one. That doesn't mean I'm not worth knowing, because I try every single day to be the best, and I try every single day to cope with what I'm going through. And yet, what I hear when I talk to people who have mental health problems is, this is repetitive. This is the way people behave. That they think it's acceptable to go, as long as I'm okay, screw what anyone else is going through. And do we really want to be in a society where that's what we're reinforcing? Because I don't. Because I'm thinking about the person who's listening to this, who is going through anything remotely what I did, and is afraid of talking up, is afraid of going to the GP through feeling, that they're going to be judged, or wanting to tell their loved one, and not are afraid of telling them, or afraid of how they're going to react. And that's such a key point. We're spending the whole time worried about how people are going to react, rather than how a mental health person is treated. And that I have a massive problem with, because the way I was treated was appalling. And yet, the people who abandoned me are never going to hear that. They're never going to hear the responsibility of that. It has a dangerous consequence to it, more so than the illness. If you speak to anyone who went through it, who went through anything like that, that's what they'll say. They'll say that the way that they were treated is more difficult to get over than the illness itself. So, I guess I wanted to share this blog to show how extreme, and this is as real as it gets, and it's a real thing, mental health, but also to reiterate that I don't want to have a son or daughter later in life, if I'm lucky enough to get that, that's going to want to tell their dad that they're going through something difficult and feeling bad negative thoughts, and don't want to tell me, because society says that's not acceptable. And also that society should tell me that regardless of bringing them up and loving them and caring for them, that if they become difficult because they're going through hell, that I should abandon them because that's the right thing to do, because it's not. And we need to batter down that. Instead of putting them in boxes, we need to open the box forcefully and say, this is something serious and is worth caring about. Because I care about that person I don't know that may be listening to this, that needs help. I care about that person, and I'm not going to change in that regard. Because if we're going to get better and get more people well again, then maybe society should help us get what we need to be well, instead of claiming that and treating us badly. Because we all need help, hence why that's what help means. And the only way we're going to get that is through people more understanding actually how difficult and dangerous mental health can be. So this blog post is called "I Won't Trade Heartache for Safety." It's been roughly 11 months since I last blogged, and of course, for those that follow GA in the podcast, you'd know the reason why there was a gap in the shows and the blog. You'd know when I came back in episode 72, I explained in much finer detail that I nearly died last year due to medical issues with my bipolar disorder. The issues being that the doctors were killing me with the amount of drugs that they had given me. I then spent 2 months fighting for my life in a ward and nearly lost that battle with suicidal thoughts, actually doing it, and my body failing with the medication I was taking. It's quite a big issue, eh? It's something that I still feel the effects of, where I get so tired that I can't move, like today as I write this blog. At times unbearable. But trust me when I say I'll take my current life over sitting paralysed in that bed every day. But as I hope you'll hear inside these words, it's not something to forget or put in a box. I embrace it because it happened. Not because I failed, but others did. All I was ill. Difficult? Yes, of course I was difficult, but of course I was. Who wouldn't be? Ask yourself this in my situation. Would you not act that way? Because it's an unbelievable difficult position to be in, but yet it's so easy that instead of thinking about that, thinking about being in my shoes, it's just easier to say it's my fault. How terrible of me to struggle with something that could easily make me feel like I should just jump off the nearest bridge. And do it. Because, Stephen, can't you just not be that way? Why couldn't it be different? Because it's so much easier just to blame me, isn't it? And simply puts it in this nice little box. Just like when I was in that hospital, away from the world and the cameras, away from your safe life. Because the one problem I find with blaming me is it's wrong, it's immoral, it's unjust and unfair. I don't blame myself because I tried the best I could. And if I was like what they portrayed me as, then why would they want to be friends with me in the first place? And maybe I deserved everything that happened to me, but I didn't, and I don't, and I never will. And there's other people like me that are the same. The proof, if you want to be the judge, was after I got out, I sued the NHS, who admitted that they screwed up inside there and before I got there, hospital I mean, and I won. And now as I write this, I find myself in my own flat that I used the money to pay for, writing this, and remembering the day when I got my compensation, crying my eyes out, with overwhelming tears of joy. And I hesitate when I say this because it necessarily wasn't joy. It's a bit like sort of a boxer who says after a fight that the first feeling they feel is relief that they did what they set out to do. And that's how I felt. Relief. Because it was over. I'd won. I was not the reason. It was like a huge bag of rocks lifted over my overwhelmed shoulders because I was right, and yet I did this largely on my own. It feels weird to feel like you have to explain yourself, to explain how much credit I know that I deserve, and also what little credit I get or have had, and how much more that I've lost during this time, because this still hurts. The people I still love and care and think about because I invested my heart and soul with them. And the one thing that scares me is I hear this story repeated. The idea that we must put mental health in a box, abandon all our great memories or friends we've known for years because they have an illness that can kill them. We've got to abandon a good human being that makes you smile and grow and give you, great opportunities and respects you and admires you, and we just let them go. All because we feel we understand, right? We do enough, and we all feel the worst mental health, and we all feel lost and alone at some point. I mean, that's just the way it is, right? Have you ever considered the idea of if we have that attitude of that's just the way it is, that's the way it's always going to be? And the only way we change that is to realise it's not just the way it is, it's the way we behave. And this idea of as long as I'm okay, but they can get over it. So as long as they're better to the detriment of me, that's the right thing. That just seems wrong, ironically. I don't want sympathy as I say this to you guys. I say this as a fact to say this is not an everyone else feels this type of illness. This also is not a story about that any other form of mental health are not worth caring about either. But lying in a bed for a couple of days feeling depressed is far different to losing everything you've ever loved while trying to stay alive. It's far different when you get people saying, just do more. When you spend all your energy trying not to give up because the pain is unbearable. Unbearable. Every single second of every minute of every hour of every day. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. That's what it was like. And if you got through something even remotely like that, then great for you. I'm happy for you. And I want to know you. And I'm so pleased you're alive and you got through it. But have you ever stopped and considered and remember the fact that there's some people like you and like me that don't make it? And when you read the evidence why, they'll say because people decided not to save them. People that they are trying to get well for, not just themselves. Because that is true. That's what happens. You want to do it for everyone, not just yourself. And I remember sitting there. I was in a room that was 4 meters by 4 meters wide, and that was it. I couldn't walk out the door without permission, and everyone you ever talk to in there screams or complains or bitches and moans, and the only friendly face is a person who checks that you're not going to kill yourself for the next 15 minutes. And it's amazing to think we're in a world where telling the truth is a crime, because this is all true. Because when I say to you that honestly, I would look out the only window that I was allowed to look out of, and I felt like the last human being alive, just hoping to find someone to give meaning to why I should continue living. All the people that I just wanted to understand and help, that never came out of pity and their own agenda of, if I be there, that's enough. Like my mum, who would ring me every day and say that, why am I being so difficult? Because it's a difficult situation and I'm struggling. It's not anything to do with you. Yet, by them leaving me and blaming me, they make it about themselves. When I wish it wasn't about me. I wish I was well. Yet, they always just say try harder. That they always turn up with their own agenda of, if I did enough, I came round and said to him, do more. Yet, they're the same people when well that would say such great things like, you're the most amazing person, you're irreplaceable, undeniably talented, and I would never leave you because I care such a great deal about you, and you're my best friend, and all this kind of thing. And yet, you give them a reason by saying that you're the opposite of that, just by being seriously ill enough that suddenly you're easily expendable, pointless, tiring, annoying, faking it, over responsible, or asking too much of the very of the same amount of time usually that you would ask when well, because it's a place they don't want to go. It's because we live in a society where we'd rather promote relief over commitment, safety over understanding, and self-preservation over universal care. Don't they understand the idea of, if you care for someone else, they'll care for you? That does happen, and there's proof in that. And it worries me that there's very little loyalty and courage in the world. And the story's like a boxer who loses his title because suddenly he isn't worth caring for because he's down and out. Like, he's lost his reputation and all of a sudden he's not worth knowing. When this is an illness where you can easily die because of how hard it is. Fact. And when you get treated like that, you think that your life is over. It's over. On top of the feeling you already have of, you can't beat this because it's too difficult. And yet, they give up on you, yet they're asking you to not give up on yourself. Which is an entirely hypocritical stance. And a very ignorant one, because leaving is easy. They have that option. I can't leave my illness because it's inside me. And they don't understand that there's some circumstances where you cease to be a human being, both literally, socially, and in my case, that carelessly happened in both cases. And it was treated like I was doing this deliberately. It was all my fault. Because you're in the right place, Stephen, the right place to get better, even though it was the place that ultimately tried to kill me. And instead of fighting for me, the one that cried with you, that kissed you when you were showing me your soul, that shared our passions and songs, that walked your dog and talked about the future, all of a sudden, that beautiful future that I was thinking about wanting to get back to got took from me. And that hurt like hell. There was a speech done by Bill Clinton in 1999 while addressing mental health reform where he remarks, "I have talked to many people about the impact these outdated attitudes have had on their lives. Most people tell me that the shame and stigma they experience are harder to bear than the illness itself." This was 1999. And it still means the same now in many ways. And I can tell you, sitting here, I have gotten over the worst of what I went through mentally, and the physical trauma that I went through will take time. But I tell you truthfully, without fear of being ridiculed, that every day I cry about how I was treated by a community that decided to outcast me. That instead of pulling together, this pulled everyone away and made me feel like I was a serial killer, a rapist. And I cry because I still care deep down. Even through all I went through, I care. Because I'm not going to put this in a box. And I'm not going to forget these memories because they don't understand what really happened. And the thing is, they're never going to answer for this. There's so many people that decide after this type of experience to be less open, less curious, more bitter, more resentful. But I choose the option of being the me that everyone should be proud of. The one that people should still want to know. Because I want life to be difficult in wanting to learn. And I embrace the difficult nature of it. And I don't want to use people for just the good times. I want to be there to say goodbye to people when they go permanently. And I refuse to run away from telling the truth. I refuse to let people to think we're dealing with mental health the right way. And if you want the most important proof of all, I shouldn't be here. Because I didn't get the help I deserved. I didn't get what I shouldn't have been treated that way, is what I'm saying. But I'm lucky. I'm one of the few that made it. Pure luck. Because after all I went through, I'd rather feel this heartache and love I have for who I am and who I really am that got abandoned than feel safe and blame something I don't understand. And I'd rather understand the human race than just simply walk away. And ironically, as you hear me say this, I'm willing to die trying to change that.